Time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News. So bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. And joining us are David Ornstein, football correspondent for The Athletic, and Martin Hardy, Northern sports correspondent for The Times and The Sunday Times. Welcome along to you both. We'll hear from you very shortly. Let's just quickly run you through the Back Pages as we have them this Tuesday night. So back page of the Mirror looks like this. Jota saves slots. Yes, it was super sub Diogo Jota off the bench and scoring after just 22 seconds after coming on as Liverpool got a point at the City grounds to maintain a 6-point lead at the top of the Premier League. Back page of The Sun looks like this. Jota to trot on that same story. And Jesus KO to force a Mick move, all about Arsenal's problems in attack with the North London derby looming. Back page of The Guardian also goes with Diogo Jota, set up there by Kostas Tsimikas, the other sub involved in Liverpool's equaliser as Reds make point. And also, as you can see at the top there, Raducanu leads a record 6 British players into the second round. And on the right, Borthwick stakes future on world-class Maro Itoje as captain for the Six Nations for England. Front of the Times Sports section looks like this. On Maro Itoje, replacing Jamie George with the armband for England. And Martin Zubimendi set to join Arsenal. Not now, but in the summer. The latest bit of transfer news. And, of course, the picture there, that Diogo Jota header. And finally, in the Telegraph, there you go. Diogo Jota celebrating once again. Zubimendi story down the right-hand side. And Itoje can lead us to World Cup. That's as far as Steve Borthwick is concerned, England's rugby union coach. Welcome once again to David Ornstein and Martin Hardy. So, gents, let's start off with Liverpool and a very, very entertaining game at the City ground. I mean, Forest did ever so well, didn't they, in this game? But then Liverpool hit back and seemed like they might even win it. Back page of the Mirror looks like this. We showed it to you briefly just before. Jota saves slot. And this could be it, couldn't it, in terms of the strength of the squad and what have Liverpool on their bench on a day, David, or on a night that their first team forwards really struggled.
Yeah, but they should have won comfortably, David, if you look at some of the chances that Diogo Jota had after coming on as a sub and getting his goal. He could have had a hat-trick within minutes. But take nothing away from Nottingham Forest. Their resilience was outstanding. Their goalkeeper, Madsels, was world-class, you could say. That performance was really elite. And, yeah, they didn't create much going forward in the second half, but they deserved their lead in the first half and they're having a truly magnificent season. You know, they are on track to qualify for the Champions League and this did have the feeling, the magnitude of a really top match. And it lived up to it. The intensity was high, the quality was fantastic, and Liverpool were pushed to their limits. They've not been on the best form, of course. The Tottenham result and Manchester United too. And this was not easy, going to the City ground on a midweek night with that atmosphere, which is just outstanding, and Forest on fire at the moment. So they'll be quite pleased, I think, Liverpool, to come away with a point from that and try and maintain their lead at the top of the Premier League and their title charge. But I don't think Forest are going away. And so, you saw Liverpool's depth and the substitutes combining for that equalising goal. They're a fantastic side, Liverpool. Slot's having a brilliant first season in charge in all competitions. And they kind of march on, and they'll be pleased not to have suffered a defeat there.
Yeah, I mean, you're right to point out, you know, the defeat to Tottenham in the Carabao Cup semi-final first leg, that 2-2 draw against Manchester United at Anfield, of course. But they're not getting beat that often, and they can still, of course, come back in that semi-final tie to potentially win it and get to Wembley. Martin, I just wondered on Jota for you specifically. I mean, just there's obviously loads of talk about Salah right now, and even Darwin Núñez being the subject of bids. But what about Diogo Jota, the contribution that he is making? As it says in The Sun, Jota to trot with that super sub, 22 seconds to level the game.
Yeah, it was some impact. And as David said, it was a phenomenal game. Whenever we have to take a break from the Premier League, it kind of comes roaring back and reminds us of just how special it is. It was an incredible night at the City ground. Nottingham Forest's rise, you can't really praise them high enough in terms of what they've done. In terms of recruitment, Murillo was brilliant tonight, 10 million. Elliot Anderson's net price was 15 million. Anthony Elanga was 15 million. Chris Wood scores again, 15 million. Matt Sells, who David mentioned there, was absolutely superb, was £5 million. So this team's been put together with some superb recruitment, and it's given Liverpool an incredible game tonight. But then the difference probably is the quality that Liverpool can turn to and what Arne Slot can turn to on the bench. And Diogo Jota has that look of a player who doesn't look particularly pleased about coming on as a super sub, but I don't think he'll be much better from that position of doing it in 22 seconds. And I think it might have been Murillo's only mistake of the night not to kind of pick up where this substitute was. I'm sure Jota will want to start more often, so there's an interesting dynamic then. But you have a night where you keep Mo Salah quiet. The top teams will find somebody else to come through and to characterise the game, and just why Liverpool probably will go on and win the league, and why Nottingham Forest are doing so well this season. I think it was about the 70th minute, and Alanga breaks at great speed, and Chris Wood, whose defensive work is phenomenal, does another 70-yard lung bust and run to get beside him, and then this Rolls Royce of a defender called Virgil van Dijk just takes the ball off Alanga and calms the situation down, and Liverpool go again. They never panicked. It's incredible to think this is Slot's first season in terms of how the players understand what he wants, the way they play, a slight less of the power of Klopp, but with a little bit more sophistication. They stood up to a really difficult night tonight when the crowd could not have been any more up for the game. And it was the character of Nottingham Forest, I think, was the main reason Liverpool didn't emerge with 3 points. But Jota comes on and does really, really well and keeps that bandwagon rolling for Liverpool.
It's interesting when you mentioned Forest, you're both talking so effusively about Nuno Espirito Santo's side. If you go back 9 years this very date, well, they have only 2 points fewer than Leicester had. In fact, they would have been exactly the same had they held out for the win at the City Ground. And we all remember what happened in 2016 and how Leicester charged to the title under Claudio Ranieri. In terms of Forest, do you think that they are going to hold down and get into that top four? Do you both expect there to be a correction of some sort? Briefly from you both. David first.
Yeah, the trajectory that they're on points-wise, David, suggests that they will make the top four. That they've got the quality and the belief there, the togetherness, the atmosphere. It won't be easy. It's a much tougher competition than Leicester had, with all due respect. It was just really Arsenal that season, wasn't it? And Liverpool are breathing fire into this title race at the top. Arsenal will presumably come back. Will City mount a challenge late on? So Forest won't have it their own way. But I'm starting to think that they're capable of it. Yeah, finishing in the top four. It now wouldn't surprise me, based on the points per game forecast, that they should be aspiring to, and it would be an incredible story.
What do you reckon, Martin?
We've had a kind of a one-team monopoly for 4 years now, and there's been a bit of a history made, but the Premier League needed a season like this. I think it's 11 points between second place and ninth place. There are 3 points between fourth place Chelsea and seventh place Bournemouth. The league table moved today like the last stage, the group stages of the World Cup, where you weren't quite sure who was going to be in the top four by the time we came on air. Nottingham Forest have been a breath of fresh air this season. Newcastle are coming strong. Keep an eye on Aston Villa. Arsenal are struggling a bit. Liverpool are standing up to the challenge. They had one at St James's Park a few weeks ago. They've had one at the City Ground tonight. It makes the league table much, much more interesting when these teams can go toe to toe with the top clubs.
You mentioned Arsenal there, Martin. Let's talk about a story on the back page of the Daily Telegraph, and that is Arsenal win race for Spain's £51 million Zubamendi, and £51 million because that is his release clause. Remember, he was linked heavily with Liverpool, then decided at the last minute not to head to Anfield. Is this the signing, David, that is going to placate Arsenal fans who know that actually perhaps their priority is in a different part of the pitch?
Not in the immediate term, David, because Arsenal fans are understandably looking for something in the final third in terms of a striker or somebody that can contribute goals from across the front line. And Arsenal are looking for that sort of player in the market. They're not going to be able to do a domestic loan because of the presence of Raheem Sterling and Neto filling those slots already, unless one of them was to be term permanent, but we're not expecting that. So they'd have to look for an overseas loan. They've been linked with Dusan Vlahovic. My latest information is that's not looking like one that that Arsenal are going to pursue. But let's see how things go in the couple of weeks ahead with a number of options that I'm sure they'll have. They like Benjamin Sesko historically, but that's I don't expect him to move in this window. The real apple of their eye is Alexander Isak, certainly for Mikel Arteta. But we know how difficult that will be, if possible at all. So Zubimendi is a midfielder that they've pursued for longer than anybody. Before Liverpool, before Manchester City, Liverpool came close last summer, but he's been the one Arteta has wanted, and they worked on it while they were in the process of signing Mikel Merino from Real Sociedad last summer, and they've made some real progress. They'll hope to get it over the line, and that will bring some real questions for what's going to happen in terms of the future of Thomas Partey and Jorginho. I don't think final decisions have been made yet, where are Marino and Declan Rice going to play in the 6 or the 8 role. But he's a top player. We've seen that with Spain and Sociedad. There's a 60 million euros release clause. As I understand it, Arsenal might look to pay a little bit more than that, actually, to then gain a better payment plan, stagger those instalments, and be able to then do other activity next summer. So, yeah, it's one that should excite Arsenal fans, but in the immediate term, they'll want something that can help them with their goals requirement. But it gives them a bit of a boost, perhaps, going into tomorrow's North London derby.
We just caught just half a second of you, Martin, shaking your head in disdain at the idea of Alexander Isak leaving St James's Park for the Emirates Stadium. But what do you think might tempt Newcastle? When we're thinking about things like PSR right now, what sort of fee do you think they'd go, all right, let's do a deal?
The current noise from Newcastle are they just won't play ball at the minute. And they have been a club that kind of set the ball rolling on the PSR conversation last year when Darren Eales admitted that Newcastle were going to have to start trading, which they did in dramatic circumstances at the end of June with Elliot Anderson and Yankuba Minde. There doesn't seem any appetite at all to sell Alexander Isak. And if they are serious about the project and breaking into that top 4 for more than just the odd season, then they have to hold on to Alexander Isak because, we've been watching a lot of him, and we've been saying for quite a while, this is probably the best centre-forward in the country, which I think he now is. And now everyone says he's the best centre-forward in Europe, and now we think he probably is, and therefore is he the best centre-forward in the world, and he's probably not far off. And the amazing thing about Alexander Isak is when you watch him regularly, he's 25, there is more to come. So he's scoring goals regularly, he can go past people, he's adding to his strength, he's scoring headers. Some big fees have been mentioned, 150 million. I think Newcastle would really stick their heels in the ground not to sell him, because if they do, the whole thing moves back a couple of years and they have to try somehow to unearth another Alexander Isak. He has a good relationship, very good relationship with Eddie Howe, who's making him a better player, get somewhere with his teammates. At the minute, are we saying moving to Arsenal would guarantee Alexander Isak a league title? It's been a long time since Arsenal won the league title, and at the minute you'd say Liverpool are very much favourites to do it this season. Can't see anything happening in January. I'm sure we'll have a lot more conversations in the summer, but by then Newcastle hope, by having 3 transfer windows where they haven't done anything, they'll be in a position where they can perhaps go, we can add to this squad. So the likes of Gomeres, Isak, Tonali, Botman, Gordon, have more players coming in like that, and you then start thinking, right, Newcastle themselves might not be too far away from going for the title.
Martin, the Zubimendi story is covered in your paper as well, in the Times. Just a really quick word on that, if you can. Him coming in, potentially Partey and Jorginho moving out. I mean, that feels like an upgrade in that position for Arsenal. Do you see it the same way? Yes,
it's definitely an upgrade. As David said, the Arsenal fans will look and go more. He is a very good player. He was great in the Euros final when he came on, when everyone thought the game would turn on Rodri, and it was like, oh, here comes somebody that's just more or less as good. But Arsenal fans will probably think we're quite well sorted for clever midfielders. We would quite like somebody with more prominence up front. And obviously, we may talk about this later, the injury to Gabriel Jesus with an ACL perhaps complicates that picture even further.
And just briefly, because Arsenal, of course, as you mentioned, David, are playing in that North London derby against Tottenham. They've had their injury struggles. Tottenham, we know, are wonderfully erratic. So what do you think is going to be the decisive factor when it comes to this one?
Well, Arsenal have to bounce back 3 without a win, and they're on home soil, and they've had a little window of opportunity open for them tonight with the draw between Forest and Liverpool. So they're going to have to be bang up for it. And the motivation losing Jesus for the season to an ACL, I think that they'll want to put the record straight after the Man United defeat in the Cup. But Tottenham themselves have shown glimmers of big game potential against Liverpool, like you said earlier. So putting me on the spot, Richarlison returning for Tottenham as well. I just wonder if Arsenal's desperation to really fight back in this title race might tip them over the edge in tomorrow's game. We shall see.
OK, guys, thank you very much indeed for the moment. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll look at more of the back pages, including this in The Guardian. Arteta urges crackdown on terrible online abuse at the bottom there. We'll see you in a couple of minutes. Welcome back. You are watching Back Pages tonight, and it's also welcome back to David Ornstein, football correspondent for The Athletic, and Martin Hardy, Northern sports correspondent for the Sunday Times. OK, so let's go to the Express. Obviously, we've mentioned Liverpool's draw at Nottingham Forest, but they cover all the other games in the Premier League as well. Some decent games, entertaining games there and draws as well. Anything that jumps off the page for you, David?
Oh, Bournemouth, it's a fantastic story what's going on there. Under Bill Foley, the new owner on the South Coast, and the sporting hierarchy, and of course, Andoni Iraola. What a coach he's turning out to be. And I don't think Bournemouth want to lose him anytime soon, but he's destined for the very top, it would appear. Their recruitment's been fantastic in recent years, and they're delivering on the pitch. Semenyo, what a story and what a goal that was for him. They'll be gutted that they didn't manage to hold on for the win. He was actually born in Chelsea, as it happens. And yeah, they seem to rise to the challenge of playing the big teams, the likes of Man City and Arsenal beaten, and a really good point at Stamford Bridge tonight. And it just shows the strength and depth of the Premier League now. It's not just the old top four or even top six, but it's below that. And they are remarkable. And a lot of teams looking at some of their players and thinking they might go for them in the future.
Which other game really caught your eye tonight, Martin?
We're kind of wondering if Manchester City are going to click into the team that's won the title 4 times, and they're winning 2-0 at Brentford with 2 goals from Phil Foden, who's starting to find a bit of form. Kevin De Bruyne has got an assist, and you're thinking this puts them back in the top 4 contention. And then there's an 82nd minute goal from Visa, and an injury time, Man City crumble again, and Brentford get this brilliant draw. And that's 12 points behind Liverpool at this stage of the season, which nobody would have foresaw. We know for various reasons it's been a particularly troublesome week for Pep Guardiola. But to see the team lose a 2-goal lead in that fashion, something they wouldn't have done in many of those previous 4 seasons, this felt like the night when you realised for definite, if there was ever doubt, that the champions have lost the title and somebody else, we're going to have a new winner come the end of the season. It's going to be interesting to see what Manchester City do from here, because that's a punishing game where they thought they had it won.
Let's move to The Guardian and the story at the bottom of the back page. Arteta urges crackdown on terrible online abuse. Listen, we've been here before, haven't we, guys? Mikel Arteta warning of the terrible consequences of failing to crack down on social media abuse, and he admitted that Kai Havertz has been affected by the abhorrent messages sent to his pregnant wife. And Arteta also goes on to say, we really have to do something about it. But what is that, David? I mean, as I say, this isn't the first time we've talked about this kind of topic on the show.
No, it's not at all. It's become a catalogue of incidents. And I was always of the view, maybe keep it under wraps and don't draw attention and give oxygen to these idiots. But that doesn't seem to have worked. And maybe it is better to out them and try and create a bit of goodwill and positivity, which Arteta has done today with some fantastic comments in support of Havertz, who's an excellent player. He's had a good time overall since joining Arsenal, especially the calendar year of 2024 in terms of his numbers. The hero 1 minute, the next He's receiving abuse. His wife's receiving abuse. I mean, what on earth is going on here? And he's a really good human being as well. And it extends far beyond that. Ange Postecoglou subjected at Tamworth from a small section of the crowd to abuse and projectiles by the sounds of it. Chris Ray, one of the Tamworth players, reporting racist abuse that he suffered online post-match. David, I don't know the solution, but there's a lot more goodwill out there than poison and negativity, and it feels incumbent on all of us now to sort of rise up and show solidarity and support and make the majority, which of a correct persuasion, louder than the noisy, vile minority, which I think most of us are absolutely sick to the back teeth of.
Yeah, well said, David. Let's move back to Martin's paper, The Times, and this exclusive by Molly Hudson. Martin, Old Firm clubs in WSL talks. So Nottingham Rangers holding initial talks with the Women's Super League to explore a move to play in the English top flight. What do you make of it?
Yeah, no, a good, very good story. Fairly dramatic as well. We'll wait to. I know the WSL are trying to kind of be very, very innovative on new ideas to boost the game. The one thing I would suspect may kind of bring this back is the fact that whether it creates a precedent for the men's game. And I don't ever see a day when Celtic and Rangers would be playing in the English Premier League for various reasons. You'd be bringing two really big clubs in as competitors. When Celtic and Rangers travel, there's this huge support that goes with them. So you would have big police operations to go with that. That may be one of the things that stops it because of the precedent with the crossover in the men's game. But we wait and see. In the story that Molly's done there, she does say that the Scottish women's game is significantly behind the English women's game anyway. But it's a very interesting story.
Let's stick with the Times, but move to a rugby union, and Six Nations almost upon us. Steve Borthwick choosing to change skipper. So out goes Jamie George and in comes Maro Itoje. How do you think that's going to change things, both in terms of on the field of play and the atmosphere with England, David?
I think it's brilliant. I think it's been a decision a long time coming, and he's got the club captaincy now after Owen Farrell's move to Racing. Obviously not great for George, but he's a few years older. He's also not completing the 80 minutes like Maro Itoje is. He's got all of the qualities to lead by example from this Six Nations onwards, and you know, he's been talismanic for club, country, and also for the Lions as well. It's hard, it's disappointing for George, which is what Borthwick has said, but Borthwick knows from a similar position that Itoje plays the same club as well, of his qualities. And when they met for a coffee, which is very rugby, isn't it, to deliver the decision, Borthwick talks of the smile that was on Itoje's face, and I think it's a great moment, and the England supporters and rugby supporters as a whole will get behind him, no doubt.
David, we've got England in Ireland, in Dublin to start off with, then France come to Twickenham. So realistically, briefly if you can, what sort of chance have they got this year?
Well, the RFU is expecting Borthwick to win 4 out of 5, which England haven't done since 2020. So it's on him to deliver. Results have been below expectation, and they've got the quality in the player pool there. So yeah, it's on his shoulders now, and I think they've got a chance of doing it.
Fantastic, David, Martin. We will leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for your company this evening.